Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Robin Gifford. I'm on the marketing team here at NeoGov. And like many of you, I came from a background in law enforcement and public safety. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. We welcome and encourage your questions. You should be able to put questions in the chat, so feel free to link them there. I'll be monitoring that chat throughout the call. I'm going to go off camera here in a little bit, but I will be watching that. And if there's time at the end, we will definitely take questions from the field, and our speakers will be happy to answer anything that we can and we have time for. Following the presentation today, everybody who registered is going to get a follow-up email, and there'll be some links there to the webinar slides and the recording. So feel free to share that out. We encourage you to schedule an appointment with us. So this is a short amount of time. We may not get to all your questions and be able to answer everything, but there will be an opportunity for you to book an appointment with us to kind of go over any outstanding questions you may have for us. So encourage you to do that. I'm going to be dropping off camera, so I want to turn it over to Sandra, who's going to get us started and introduce herself, and then the rest of the speakers will introduce themselves. Thank you so much, and Sandra, it's all yours.
Thank you, Robin, for that introduction. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to take a deep dive into AI and Power DMS's products regarding AI. So I'm super excited about today. My name is Sandra Lauren-Severns, and I'm a public safety advisor here at NeoGov. Over my 35 years in public safety, 15 of it, I served as a police chief. So I know the demands that public safety leaders have, and I know it also continues to increase. You're making decisions with less resources. You're being asked to do more with less, and being armed with the right tools really can make a difference between reacting to a crisis and preventing one. And joining me today are two incredible leaders who have experience with the realities in public safety. So first, I'd like him to introduce himself. We have retired Chief Chris Debbie with us.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, wherever you're at in the nation. My name is Chris Debbie. I like to say recently, but it was 3 years ago that I retired. It seems very recent. From the Union County Police Department in New Jersey, where I spent 34 years there with my last 7 as chief. I came over here to Power DMS about 3 years ago as the Director of Brand Development. Now I'm the Senior Public Safety Executive Advisor for the platforms. And as I've been here, really became an influencer, executive influencer in some of the new platforms and things that they're putting on top of the platforms. Excited to talk about this, excited to talk about where we're going, what we're doing, and thank you for inviting me, Sandra.
No, you're welcome, and thank you for being here, Chief. Next, I have Lieutenant Jonovich. Can you take a minute? She's a jail administrator in Ohio, and can you introduce yourself to us?
Sure thing. Hi, I'm Amanda Jonovich. I work at the Geauga County Sheriff's Office. I know that's usually a mouthful. I've been here at the jail for 20 years. I started as a line officer, worked my way up. I've done a little bit of everything. I've been an FTO, I've been an OIC, I've been our court officer with all of our video courts. We house for several different agencies, so we have a lot of courts we work with. And then I was a compliance manager for all of our inspections. We have several with our state and through immigration. So I've been a little bit of everything. And then I was recently promoted to jail administrator last summer.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant, for that introduction, and thank you for being with us today. So for the group, today we're going to explore how secure AI is helping agencies accelerate background investigations, elevate policies, surface stress indicators, and really turn community feedback into defensible data. So before we start, I do want to make a special announcement for our policy customers. At the end of this call, we will be sharing exciting new AI feature being released soon, as well as a free trial offer exclusive to our webinar attendees. So please stay tuned to learn more about our products and to learn more about this offer. And we'll also have some Q&A at the end. So we're going to dive deep into how disconnected workflows create operational risks. And every public safety leader really wants operational confidence. You want to know policies are followed by employees. You want to know risks are addressed and employees are supported. But many agencies are facing a difficult reality. Even with those strong policies in place, there's disconnected systems throughout the department, there's manual workflows, and those are the things that are really quietly creating operational risk. And that risk tends to show up in 3 predictable areas, which we're going to talk about today. First, hiring delays. Across public safety, average time to hire has stretched to 131 days or more, according to one of our customers, largely due to slow and manual background processes. You can lose top candidates that move on to other agencies who just, quite frankly, can do those backgrounds quicker and aren't chasing paperwork around. Chief Debbie, can you talk a little bit about if the speed of a background on a police officer really matters when it comes to the hiring the right candidate? What's your experience in that area?
Absolutely. It's such a competitive landscape right now. And I think the speed of you being able to get that background started, get that information in the queue, be able to work through those applicants, the quicker you can get to them, the quicker you're going to be able to scoop them up from another agency, another surrounding agency being able to scoop them up as well. And again, what that does for us is that gets us those qualified, interested candidates quicker, gets us to them before our neighbors do.
Great, thank you for explaining that. And so our customers are thinking, you know, it's going to take 4 to 6 months to do a background. Chief, now that you see some of our products, how much time can we really save?
A tremendous amount of time. My agency does a tremendous amount of backgrounds. They normally do it or my former agency, shall I say. It's very refreshing to say that. They're producing like 400 to 450 to 475 backgrounds a year.
Wow.
If I'm able to give them a platform as the executive that cuts 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes off of a background, that's going to give them back so much more time to, take more time on and direct towards their other jobs. Because as we all know, we're all wearing 17 different hats. It's just which way we end to, spin it that day and what hour we're going to wear that hat for. So to be able to give them time to wear those other hats and delve into other work, I think is just really a home run along the line.
No, thank you for explaining that. Now, second, I want to get into the issue of readiness gaps. We know that just because an employee signs a policy doesn't guarantee they have comprehended it. Lieutenant, you shared that supervisors can spend up to 90 hours manually building your annual training tests. Research shows retention of written material can fall to 10% within a week without the reinforcement of that policy. So this creates exposure, not because people don't care, but because the system isn't really designed to reinforce training. Can you share what you were doing before implementing a solution to help with this issue?
Yes, we probably, like most agencies out there from the beginning when I first got hired 20 years ago, it was read a policy and sign this long list of policies that you read it and understood it. So that didn't work well. We read it and then you forgot exactly what you just read. Then we thought we were going to get a little bit better, and now we're going to email me that you got these, so now I can prove it faster that you remembered or not what you were doing. And then we moved a little bit further into we're going to manually create 1 test per policy, and now we're going to ensure that you read that policy, but without any reinforcement after that.
And so using this test, how long did it take for you to put together that test, distribute it, and get it returned?
So on average, we had to make them ourselves. So I would have a night shift sergeant create a test per policy. It took on average, about 30 minutes per test to put together. I just took a quick look. I have 114 policies, and the tests were created on about 80 to 90 of those policies. So it was quite a bit of manual work.
Yeah, that sounds time consuming. Chief Debbie, can you add to that?
Well, like I said earlier, anytime you can cut manual work from our staff is tremendous. Not only does it give time back to that staff member, but it also gives the organizational time staff back as well. And oftentimes, if they're spending a lot of time doing something, maybe they're going to make a mistake. Maybe they're going to make an error in that. And I think that having the ability to have a platform that would, generate things and do things without that manual aspect is a home run on a number of different fronts.
Sure. Well, let's dive into the third area, which is hidden signals, which may be the most concerning to all of us. There's burnout, cumulative stress, and trauma that live in disconnected data points across our departments. Wellness indicators, training gaps, early warning signs, they're all there, but they're buried in manual systems or disparate systems really across the department. And by the time leaders see the impact, it's usually after an incident, a complaint, or sometimes even a resignation. So when these workflows are fragmented, leaders can lose clarity, and when clarity is limited, so is command visibility. Lieutenant, you're responsible for running a jail. Can you tell us the challenges related to disparate data systems in recognizing when an employee may be struggling with a personal or professional problem?
Yeah, we really don't have a good system in place besides, I mean, hopefully that the coworkers will report something, or I'll see something like, okay, this person usually does really well in this and now they're falling off, or their attitudes change, but we really don't have a good system in place yet to really track how a person is doing. Luckily, we're a smaller department, but I couldn't even imagine what a large department faces.
No, exactly. So we're not just talking about being efficient. It's about protecting the talent pipeline, those coming into the department, reinforcing readiness, and giving leadership real-time visibility before those risks really become a liability. And these are the operational problems we're going to dive into today. So our goal here today is really empower public safety professionals to learn more about how to use secure and assisted AI as a force multiplier while retaining that human judgment. You'll hear on how implementing the right tools with assisted AI can reduce administrative workload and ensure that you have the right information you need to really lead with that confidence. And we know whenever AI enters the conversation, two questions come up. Is our data safe? And who is really in control of it? And we're going to talk about that in a bit. But today you're going to see AI capabilities in Power DMS products and really our approach as a company to security and also the ethics. So let's dive into our first major challenge. Across the ICP and nationwide, the top concern that we're hearing from law enforcement leaders is staffing. Although there are many factors really that are related to this issue, one contributing factor is losing great candidates because background checks take far too long. I can remember that you have multiple people in the background process at the same time at different agencies, and really it's the first job offer that they accept. Chief, can you discuss the challenge related to these hiring timelines, and are agencies really losing candidates just for a week or two or three because one is taking longer than the other?
Absolutely, Sandra. I mean, think about it as an applicant. If you're applying for a job, number one, and you send an application in and you hear, we've got your application, we're working on it. 3 or 4 weeks go by and you haven't heard anything. By that second or third week, you're going to be looking for a job somewhere else because you're thinking that you're not going to be offered this job, that you're not in the mix. And again, that's where I think these manual bottlenecks become very severe in an organization. Our investigators, they often have a number of character references that per each candidate that they have to go through. Reading and summarizing lengthy text responses is just time consuming, and it creates piles of data that takes up hours of an investigator's time. That investigator's time could be shortened if it can be shortened, and there are some platforms. This platform does shorten it with the addition of an AI component. And what that does is that gets to the meat and potatoes of things as quickly as possible and gives that time back to that investigator to take more time delving into the deeper parts of it. You're already ahead of the game because it's been looked at. And it's been identified, and sometimes already been cut out of it. So I think it's a huge, huge win to cut time out.
No, and I think that's a good point. And I also think with today's generation coming into law enforcement, can you imagine handing them a PHS and having them write it out or type it out? Some agencies we're talked to are even using, Adobe, and they're having them fill it out in that manner. But you talked about a platform that's available to make a difference and shorten up time. And it's really not about just our time. It's about the time of the applicant, and it's the time it takes them to fill it out as well. And really it rises to a professional standard that's now really, you see across the board. And our solution at Power DMS is vetted. Vetted delivers this accelerated vetting through AI automated summaries. With a single click, it analyzes character reference responses and really instantly converts lengthy narratives into structured professional summaries. I love that. And instead of investigators manually reading through pages and pages of unstructured feedback from references, from professional and personal references, and drafting these reports from scratch, the system really organizes those key insights clearly, concisely, and really ready for them to review and submit. The impact is faster review cycles, and what requires 30 minutes of writing in the past really becomes 5 minutes or less of just focused investigator review. So we know that AI isn't perfect. So the investigator still has to go through the document, review it, and make sure that it reflects the documents that were submitted. And just as important, this is an AI designed to support professional judgment, not replace it. So they, as a background investigator, they will always have the final authority. Vetted simply handles the heavy lift of analyzing and structuring that information, so background investigators can move faster without sacrificing quality or really control of that document. But let's dive into the case study that really exemplifies this. Chief, can you walk us through the Cobb County Police Department case study?
Yeah, Cobb County, a very large county operation in Georgia, they were having a tremendous problem losing top candidates to agencies that did their backgrounds quicker, did them, in a faster manner. And that's where I spoke earlier about, it would be great to have a platform that not only gives that time back, but does concise, quick studies and provides that data that you need in a quick manner to be able to get to that candidate first. They were having a 131-day average timeline, hiring timeline, which is probably an average timeline. It was average probably a little less for my organization. My organization was probably a little bit more because you have so much things to go through, and there's so much paperwork to go through to make sure that you have all that paperwork through if you're using a paper system. To have a dedicated system that is electronic in manner, and it hits nail on the head earlier, Sandra, when you talked about the class of people we're hiring now and the age of people we're hiring now. You find me a 20-year-old or a 21-year-old that knows what an ink pen is, and I think we're a step ahead of the game already. They don't even know how to fill things out, much less sign their own name to some things. Everything's electronic nowadays, and that's what they're used to. And I think the use of an electronic platform brings your organization to the 21st century. It brings them to a system that is much easier and what people in our newer workforce requires. In that Cobb County study, they were able to accelerate their vetting processes with the AI generated summaries that this platform provided for them. It gave them quick, concise, applicationable information and quantifiable information on what they were saying. The vetted tool, AI referenced their summaries of what the officers were saying. It reduced hiring from 131 days to 39. Imagine that, 39 days. So you're getting almost 100 days back, which is huge, and gets to your potential candidates first, your good potential candidates first. They had a 70% hiring with AI-assisted vetting. And more importantly, what this did is they were able to capture higher quality candidates, again, by moving faster than the competitors and their neighbors. And I think that's really the key as an executive. I definitely want a higher qualified candidate and have them in my ranks and in my pool as quickly as possible. And they were also able to maintain quality and fairness while increasing efficiency at the same time, as you can see, which is really a huge benefit. It becomes a transparency for your organization as well.
No, thank you for that. Some of our clients are talking about candidates that are even completing their PHS on their cell phones because vetted is so easy to go through, save, and submit. So there's some pretty amazing features in it for the candidate, but also the department as well. Well, let's move on to the next problem to tackle, which is training, specifically the sign and file strategy. I love. And we're going to look at it in a jail setting because we have the lieutenant here with us today. So in a jail setting, accreditation is everything. Simply having correction all officers just sign a policy doesn't mean they have the cognitive readiness that you talked about before, Lieutenant, that they understand the policy or procedure, and it just proves that they open the document. So the forgetting curve, which we talk about, really is that silent killer. It's an estimated that officers, correctional officers, employees can forget up to 90% of what they read within a week if it isn't actively reinforced. So, Lieutenant, can you share with us how your team approached this? You talked about before how you approached this before recall. Anything you want to add to that, and particularly maybe the administrative burden on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously it was a lot of time spent by the sergeants to make the tests. And it was a night shift sergeant that was doing it just for simply after lockdown, they have some time on their hands. But at 2 a.m. trying to make a test, and then once you got on test number 3 and test number 4, the quality of the test definitely went downhill. And, that's just human nature, right? You can only do so much at, 2 and 3 a.m. and make it make sense. We'd find all sorts of spelling errors and everything. Once we went back through it the next day, we're like, what were you trying to ask there? Because I don't even know. And then as far as the accreditation and the inspection process, we have to show that all of our officers are trained in things annually, whether it's suicide prevention, hunger strikes, emergency plans, all of these things. And it was a huge task to track it, make sure we didn't forget to put a test out. And we get to 2 weeks out from an inspection, we're like, we forgot to train on something like our severe weather response, something that we never look at. And then we're like, well, we have to have that training done. So it was a lot. It was a lot of oversight on my part and my sergeant's part. And it's important to point out for everyone, this is a small jail and a small agency. We're not, I'm right next to Geauga County, which is Cleveland. We're not their size by any stretch. Our maximum population here is 182. I have 32 line officers. It's just me and 4 sergeants. So I don't have a training lieutenant and all these other things. So we needed to find something that's easy for just this small team to carry out.
No, I agree. And sometimes when you have the same policy year over year, it's hard to come up with new questions, right? And then employees get the hang of it. Oh, well, this was the test we took 6 months ago, or this was the test from last year, So I think that you make some good points there. Chris, do you have anything to add here?
Well, I absolutely agree with the lieutenant's concept and comments about, yeah, those early morning hour tests that they're creating definitely are going to have some issues. They're definitely going to have some roadblocks and some speed bumps in it. We see in our staff, if they're doing reports at 3 o'clock in the morning, they should have been home 4 hours earlier, on a late job. There's going to be some difficulty in getting to their point because they're tired. So obviously that's a huge liability risk for an organization to be able to have that and to be able to expect your staff to not only learn, but more importantly, be competent as well. And I think that's one of the real keys of anything that we can do that can help with the competency as well as lower our liability and take some burden off of the administration as well. Writing these things, writing these tests, writing these processes, to be able to give, again, what are we talking about here? We're talking about time back. We're talking about the ability to do more with less, which we all have to do now. And I think that having solutions that do that are really game changers in the field.
No, you bring up a good point about risk and liability. So it's not just making things easier for us or better for us in a workflow, but the risk management piece to this is so critical because it can impact the agency, years over year. Well, let's talk about what Lieutenant pointed out. Policy changes happen fast, sometimes faster than our training cycles can really keep up with, and we need a way to respond in real time. So Recall uses secure AI to automatically generate scenario-based micro-learning and digital flashcards directly from agency's policy. Instead of relying on officers or employees to passively read a document, sign off on it year after year, it transforms that policy into really this living document and into a short practical reinforcement moments that keep that comprehension active. Some agencies say, hey, this recall, it's really fun. It's like a game. And you can even add some competition in there if you want. But that shift is really critical because that continuous readiness means policies stay fresh in employees' minds without adding administrative lift to supervisors or training staff. So if a trend pops up in microlearning, if there's a specific area like vehicle pursuits or use of force questions, they can really reinforce that relevant policy if they're seeing on the dashboard that the scores are going down. They don't have to wait for the next annual training cycle to do reinforcement. Recall gives us the ability to adapt quickly, reinforce consistently, and really ensure employees know the right answer before a critical incident happens, not after. So recall utilizes a closed system AI. What's closed system AI? Closed system means recall goes into your own policies, the current policies, not the previous policies. Recall goes into your current policies and creates some draft questions. And all you need to do is review those questions. If you like them, send them out as a deck. It pulls only from your internal agency policies and never goes outside of your agency. But let's shift to a case study using recall. Lieutenant, can you walk us through the case study in the jail?
Sure, absolutely. So this past summer, I remember we use the policy through Power DMS. So I'm like, I remember hearing something about some sort of AI something. So I'm like, all right, let me figure this out. So I got a hold of our account manager and went through it, and I was very, very impressed of how easy this was. Because again, now I was going to do all of the work. I needed to get it off my sergeant's desk, and I was going to do it. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do this, one, it has to actually make sense. It has to be easy to do because I have a lot of stuff to get through. So we made the jump to recall. I was able to create one deck per policy. And again, I have 114 policies. So that's a lot of decks, right? Right. But it really didn't take very long. I was able to go in and, you know, set which policy I wanted to do, go in and vet those questions, tweak it a little bit. Maybe there's like a specific area of the policy I really wanted to drill into because we were having an issue. I could highlight that section of the policy and make sure questions came specifically from there. It was very user-friendly. And then I sent it out to the troops. And as anyone in leadership knows, when you send something new out, you're usually met with not such good responses. But I'm like, I promise, guys, it is not going to be as bad as it seems. So I first started with 50 cards per month. And then I gave them 2 months, and I got great feedback from my officers. They thought it was fun. They were challenging each other. There were people that just took off with it and were doing 400 cards on their own. Like I asked them for 50 and they gave me 400, and they say it didn't take very much time. I had some people come into my office and go, your policy's wrong. I'm like, no, policy's correct. What you've been doing for years has been wrong. So it did identify those gaps in understanding. So then once I realized 50 really isn't that bad, let's just go ahead and double this game. So we started in August of 2025. For 2 months, they did 50, and then we banked it up to 100 cards per month. Not a single one of my officers pushed back on me, which is unheard of, especially if you've ever worked in a jail. We're a difficult bunch. So to not have any pushback was amazing. And then I had officers on their own going into the analytics and go, wait a minute, this person has a higher score than me. I'm gonna make sure I beat this person. So they turned it into their own competition, and it was great. I briefly looked at our stats. Since August, my officers have taken 25,428 cards.
Wow.
That's insane. That is an insane amount of learning that now when I have my inspections, I can say, okay, let me pull up my emergency plans and look, and I can go either card by card or deck by deck and show them they were trained in all of these areas ongoing. Every single month they're hitting questions on them. And I don't even have to think about it. It just does it. And then I'm currently in our policy review process of going, again, back through a whole 114 policies. And when I go back into recall, there's a little arrow that says, hey, something changed here. And I just go in and make sure the cards either needed to be updated or didn't need to be updated. Do I add, if there was a new policy section I want on there, I just update it. It takes less than 2 minutes to update my decks per policy. It was great. And then I was able to even expand our training. I was able to take the about 85 corrections-based policies and then add in all of our medical policies and all of our food service policies. Even though my officers technically don't need to know about that because they're not doing it, now it increases their knowledge base. So when they're dealing with an inmate and an inmate gives them a medical question or a food service question, now they know. And now they can vet some of those questions to even prevent an issue before it started. And a lot of my officers said, they liked knowing that. They didn't know we had like this death policy. They're like, we didn't even know what that meant, but now they know it exists and they know what's in there. So it's been invaluable. We love it. And I never want to go write my own test again, ever.
Right. No, thank you for that. And I think one of the things you talked about is not only the ease of Power DMS products, but how connected they are. You go from policy to recall really easy because it's easy to do. Second, you talked about them knowing kind of the unique policies that you don't use or you don't use at all from day to day, right? And you talked about them knowing those policies, and that's going to help during the promotional process for them to know those policies that, you know, whether they're high risk, low use, or they're just a low use policy. So that's a good point. Chief, I'm going to turn to you. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, the competitive nature of law enforcement and how this platform can sort of help with morale?
Absolutely. So right out of the gate, Lieutenant, your figure of how many cards you guys have done since August really stands in my mind. And the one word that comes to my mind, or the two words, is liability reduction. And that's the hugest point of this platform, is like you spoke earlier about, and like you spoke too about, Sandra, those low use policies, those low use procedures. Nobody knows them. We don't look at them after we've signed them 5 years ago. We all are pretty competent on doing, you know, our high profile things, felony motor vehicle stop, a cell extraction, things like that. The stuff that we do normally or on a normal basis. It's the stuff that we don't do that really sometimes can jam our agencies up and jam our people up. And I think to be able to have that process to step into those less used policies and have those micro learning bursts, which is how we all learn, you know, from repetitive, continued learning processes, you know, and what that does with this platform is it, you know, we're very competitive in nature. Law enforcement, public safety, fire, EMS, we're all competitive, you know, and how this platform is pushed out allows for a gamified version. And I think that's really the benefit of getting it entrenched and getting our people really involved and liking it, is that ability to almost gamifying it. You know, it challenges them to compete amongst their teams. We've all seen it. We've seen it with groups, platoons, you know, shifts. Maybe they're going to do a ticket blitz. Maybe they're going to do a, you know, a this or a that. They're going to go out and do some traffic enforcement. You know, this is going to get them excited about learning and the benefits of the organization. That also brings the benefit to the community as a whole, because, you know, it's that transparency aspect, and our staff knows what to do, and the community wants to know that our staff knows what to do. So anytime we can provide them with that ability to learn even more and have that as a almost a muscle memory reaction, I think is huge.
Right. No, thanks for sharing that. And before we move on briefly, Lieutenant, can you talked about a dashboard. And one of the things I love about Power products is dashboards that we have. And recall's no different. So how did you use the dashboard?
Yeah, I love the dashboard. I can go in and quickly see, all right, does everyone actually have the training done? Do I have to remind anyone? It's very user friendly. I can go in and either I have them in different groups, whether they're my officers, which I name test takers, or my medical group. I can go in and see how each group is doing. And then I can go in and be like, okay, by this everyone's bombing this section. Like, what's going on here? And it'll identify areas quickly for me that I need to do more training and that we need to push out and reinforce. And then I can get some of our more veteran officers that have been here 25, 30 years. I'm like, you know, the new guys are kicking your butt. Like, might want to go read your policies, because the new guys know what they're doing, but you guys have been here forever and you kind of forgot what you were doing. So it's great. I can send out little tidbits of information, and it really keeps everyone motivated. And then the officers look at it all the time themselves.
Sure. No, thank you for sharing that, Lieutenant. But we're going to move on. We're going to move on to officer and employee wellness. Chief, you and I have had conversations regarding this, and the ongoing epidemic of law enforcement suicide continues to be a critical issue in the United States. Blue Help reported 73 active officer suicides reported in 2025. That doesn't also include retired officers. And year to date this year, 9 officers have committed suicide, and that's indicating the numbers are maybe trending down, but the reality is 1 is just too many. We are drowning in data in departments, and supervisors simply cannot manually review every single CAD call, every single CAD narrative for stress signals or trauma indicators. And because of this, wellness outreach has historically been strictly reactive, depending on entirely on a supervisor's memory or past calls, or even an employer reaching out to find support, connecting with peer support. But we need a way to identify warning signs before an employee falls into crisis. Chief, can you talk a little bit about what the missing piece is in employee wellness programs? Because we've made so many strides in peer support programs and, officers to officers, dispatchers to dispatchers supporting each other, but there's more work to be done. And can you talk about what that missing piece is?
Yeah, absolutely, Sandra. So, we're 25 years too late talking about this stuff, I think, and I think now it's come to the forefront. It's on the front burner instead of the back burner, officer wellness and, early intervention. And I think that part of the missing piece is the ability to collect that data and the ability to refine that data and review that data. And I think platforms that have the ability like ours does becomes more of a holistic approach, and being able to look at everything that the officer is dealing with, not just the flags that are thrown up because you've done X amount of use of forces or X amount of pursuits, but also how everything else is affecting you. And I think that's really the benefit of having a platform that can, take everything into account, look at it, read it, and give you some direction on your staff.
Sure, and that's where our Power Vitals can really close that gap. Vitals serves as a proactive CAD note analyzer. It uses content-aware AI to instantly review every CAD narrative to identify if an officer or an employee has been exposed to some sort of trauma. Trauma indicators could come up in calls related to child abuse, violent incidents, death investigations, just to name a few. But the AI analyzes the CAD data and provides what we call a pulse score. So leaders can offer, basically, once they see a pulse score go down or up, depending on what the concern is, they can provide the human-led support and intervention before that burnout occurs. And there's a critical guardrail related to this, though. This is an assisted wellness signal that comes from CAD. It's not necessarily a performance signal, but it evaluates those narratives from CAD and it gives you situational awareness rather than just simplistically matching keywords. It helps you respond and support your first responders proactively.
Right.
But let's move into, Chris, I know that you've used that product. I know you're heavily involved in it. Can you tell us about how the dashboard in Vitals works so that your chief, your captain, your sergeants can really provide that next level of support?
So yeah, this is probably one of the strongest tools and the strongest platforms we have here at Power DMS, and I think it's really one of the most important ones for executives, for peer support networks, for anyone that has to do with the wellness part of our job. It certainly is a big part of our job, and you got to realize, and I think we all do that are on this call, along with anyone in our organizations, part of our issues are not what we face on the job, but it's also what we have at home as well. And it's what we bring back to the job, and vice versa. And it's a round circle that we go around with all the time. And I think that one of the key aspects of this platform is that CAD notes analyzer, because like you said, Sandra, we all might have the same CAD type call, but the meat and potatoes is going to be in that CAD information in those comments. You might respond to an MVA with a DOA, and it might be an ejection of 3 juveniles. Those juvenile, that job is going to weigh on you more. And I think that this platform, to be able to look at what your staff has experienced, what they're doing, to watch their scores, is one of the first signs of, hey, we need to look and see what's going on here. Chris has been through a lot. Chris has been to a lot of calls. He's, his pulse score of everything he's looking at and influencing is going up. And I think for frontline supervisors to have that data look at, as well as everyone else, I think that's really where we start that game of early intervention and step into it and really begin to help our people. Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing that. Let's move on to our final challenge, and that relates to community trust and feedback. Some departments really hesitate sometimes to solicit community feedback because they view it as really opening Pandora's box. They fear of getting overwhelmed with an unimaginable influx of comments from all over the world rather than just from their community, or from people who have really come in contact with the police. Even if you don't get a high survey response rates, manually sorting through thousands of comments to separate the urgent comments from valid concerns, from the positive interactions, is really a massive administrative lift. So the results is that agencies miss out on hearing from kind of what is the silent majority who actually want to say thank you or support the officers or employee in the field that help them out with something. But the Power DMS solution is to gain meaningful insight into community feedback, and we call that Engage. Engage solves this by measuring community trust with using AI. Engage can increase citizen satisfaction through text updates, which I love, related to the citizen call for service. It can keep citizens informed throughout the life cycle of the incident of the call for service, while reducing those manual callbacks into dispatch. Hey, where's my officer? Hey, no one's come to our car accident. So a few example of the updates that they can send out as far as notifications is notification of a delayed response, pre-arrival instructions, incident and report numbers, and investigative update or crime victim notifications. So automatically gathers all measured system satisfaction without adding to your workload through just simple text messages. Engage delivers the communications citizens expect without needing really additional staff. And Engage boosts officer morale and retention with positive feedback and stronger community connections. And the sentiment analysis automatically organizes the feedback. So AI is taking that information, organizing the feedback, and instantly understands sort of the vibe of citizen complaints as either positive or negative. The positive ones go out to the officers or the employee, and the negative ones stay internally to review for additional follow-up if necessary. In addition, agencies can display citizens' feedback on electronic boards throughout the department, which employees love to see. Hey, you know, officer such and such did a great job on this call. Hey, officer such and such helped me and assisted me with, you know, finding my dog or the cat in the tree or whatever it is, my missing child. So that positive feedback that employees constantly get can really have an impact to increase morale in a department. But again, I love the administrative dashboard, which provides that pulse of citizens' view on department operations, from officers to dispatchers to detectives to professional staff that support our officers in the field. So when soliciting community feedback, what do you want to hear from the community as a police chief?
Well, of course, you want to hear nothing but good things, but a lot of times that's not a realistic response for things.
Sure.
But however, what I always wanted to hear was how my staff was doing, how my officers were doing, how my services were being received, how my officer services were being received, and what we were doing for the community. I was the first in the nation to roll this out a number of years ago, and I got to tell you, I was afraid of the community feedback that I was going to get. Nobody wants to open up as an executive their agency to some real-time conversation with the public. So of course, you know, that fear and trepidation was there. However, where I was shocked and surprised was it was immediately positive and immediately supportive and immediately thank you for what you're doing and thank you for that. And what I learned is not only did this create a transparency through my organization with the citizens, but it also made the citizens feel like they were involved in my organization and feel like they were involved in the services being delivered to them. Not only through those, pre-arrival instructions, through the we're en route, we got sent to a higher priority call. Keeping them in the loop is really what they wanted to hear, you know. And in the end, there's a million ways to make a complaint against law enforcement. There's not a lot of easy, quick ways to say you guys are doing great, thank you. And this platform did exactly that for us. It gave the instantaneous power to the public to say, thank you, you guys are doing great. And again, it's not an open-ended platform where we're hearing from somebody in their grandparents' basement in Idaho that has never left. This is people that we've actually serviced and actually people that we've come into contact with and done work for and have called us. And to get that, to share those comments, those positive comments with my staff was an incredibly beneficial thing for the morale of my agency across the entire organization, from my comm center to my patrol division, to my investigative division, to everything.
No, and the fantastic piece about Engage, which I love, is that you can choose the call type you want to send these to. So you may not choose to send them to, a traffic stop or an arrest. You may choose to send them to maybe a car accident or some other sorts of calls, like a burglary. So you really can make the system designed to work for the agency specific. Yeah. So let's move on to problem 5, and this is what we wanted to announce today. And we want to talk about a new feature coming soon. So we wanted to give everyone here today kind of a sneak peek. And this is for our policy customers only. So you need to have Power Policy. And if you don't have Power Policy, but you like what we're saying, you can get Power Policy just like that. But what we have to develop here at Power DMS is we've developed an AI natural language speak search for our policy customers into your policies. In high pressure moments, staff don't want to search through a bunch of policies. They want to ask the question and understand what to do with confidence that the answer is backed by that policy. So why is something like this important? We know time is critical in real life situations, and we know keyword searches sometimes requires guesswork. That was that policy, and what keyword is going to grab that policy back to me to review? Policies are dense and they're very technical. Lieutenant, you talked about this large amount of policies and now procedures that you're putting into Power Policy. There's a lot to review there to find a specific policy. Sometimes there's inconsistency in interpretation between staff. And so when answers are hard to find or unclear, staff just say, hey, I'm going to rely on my memory or past practice or experience. And a lot of times when you're trying to search for something, they don't really provide direction. And so this solution is AI natural language speech. Super excited about this product. And it's going to allow an employee to ask a real world question in plain language and receive clear answers drawn directly from your policies. Remember the AI we talked about? Our AI is a closed system. So it's not going out to the world of AI. It's staying within your policies. Employee asks a question with links to the exact source that they can go to for further review. And why does this matter? It reduces time to clarify and give clarity to that policy. It removes that keyword guesswork. What keyword am I going to use to find that policy? It provides the answers. But remember, AI is not always the solution. It provides the answers with the sources. So AI provides an answer, but also shows an employee where from that policy I'm pulling from. It supports consistent interpretation of the policies, and it enhances, not replaces, that traditional search. Employees can still have access to the full documents and perform standard searches. AI only adds clarity and context on top of those existing capabilities. So this new feature is yet another tool to help ensure your employees are engaged with your policies. It's in beta testing now, and our plans are to have this in the hands of all of our customers the second half of the year. Super excited about that. So, Lieutenant, you've heard now about our new features, and I'm curious how this might impact your operation.
I'm super excited about this. I frequently have officers literally pop in my office. How do I do this? I'm like, did you look at the policy? No, I don't have time to do that. So this will give them an easier way to do that. And then when it comes to inspection time, when we get our federal inspections, we'll have a team of maybe 5 to 8 inspectors that show up that have never been here before. So this will give them, because we give them access to Power Policy, and they can go and look at all of our policies, and they do that keyword search. And then they'll come back to me, you don't even have this policy. I'm like, it's right here. Because they didn't search for like that specific word that I have in the policy, where they could just ask this, how do they do this? Or how do I do this? Or how do we book someone? And that would be able to give them that information.
Sure. So I know our policy customers have been patiently waiting for this. And now we're going to move on to the AI-enabled recall trial offer. So for attending today, this webinar, you will receive an unlocked 120-day trial of our recall, which is digital microlearning flashcards that we talked about. So you'll get the information in your email to your master administrator. But the recall trial must be accepted and started by June 30th. So let's move on to summarizing what we talked about today. Today we talked about AI and how it improves efficiency, how it can protect your talent pipeline, which is vetted, how it reinforces readiness, which is our recall product, and last, provide real-time data on potential wellness issues before a wellness risk really becomes a liability, which that's in vitals. And this is exactly what can drive operational confidence for a police chief, fire chief, a communications manager, etc. Last, I'm going to move into and shift into our security and ethics. I know you've been waiting for this. So before we open it up to Q&A, I want to touch on security and ethics. We know the major concern when discussing tools of AI is whether your agency's data is safe. And Power DMS AI is built with CJIS-aligned security standards and deployed using an enterprise model licenses. Agency data is never used to train the public or global IA models. It stays secure in that Gov cloud environment. So ethically, our AI serves as an advisor. And that's really important key piece. It provides transparent source-backed outputs so your team can review and verify. Human judgment always remains final when it comes to using AI products, and this is no different. So we use AI to reduce administrative burden and improve consistency, but decisions stay in the hands of who it should stay into, which is the professionals. The goal is simple, operational confidence, not automation without oversight. So,
And Sandra, I think I just want to throw this in because it's very important. AI is a scary word in public safety right now.
sure.
And you know, it's almost like body-worn cameras years ago when those rolled out. We were scared by them. And look what happened. We've embraced body-worn cameras. They've helped our organization. They've helped our officers. They've helped the public. They've created a connection. They've created transparency. And in the long run, they really assisted organizations. I think AI is going to be the same thing like that, if it's used properly, and more importantly, if it's baked in properly and rolled out properly. And I'm really proud and really excited how Power DMS by NeoGov has taken their AI model and really used it to lay on top of things and still let the closed loop end of it, so it's still going to gather that information, but more importantly, that it serves as an advisor and that it still requires that human touch, that human judgment end of it, which is so important in our world because everything changes on a dime. And to be able to have that human judgment to relook at things and say, okay, this or this or this, I think is really great. And I'm proud that, you know, Power DMS by NeoGov has done that and embraced those AI security models and how they want to do it and layered it in.
No, absolutely, and I appreciate you pointing that out. So we do have a couple questions that I want to start with in our Q&A as we move into summarizing and closing up our webinar today. Lieutenant, how were you able to convince your leadership of the value to purchase recall?
Yeah, I got met with some resistance because we use a different platform, and it was really just the education piece of, this is why I need it here, and because this is specific training to our policies that I couldn't get from anybody else, and if we wanted it, we had to create it ourselves. And it was really driving that point home, and they're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm like, great, I can go get a suicide training program anywhere, doesn't actually tell me what we do in the jail.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you for that. And have you ever been concerned about using AI in your daily work? And if you had concerns, how'd you overcome those?
Yeah, AI is a scary word, but I have teenagers, so they use AI all the time. They're teaching me, and the fact that they're being taught in their classes how to use AI, I'm like, all right, we're just gonna have to just do this. And it was very, very impressive when I first started using Recall, that all the questions made sense. I was worried it was going to come out and the scenarios weren't going to make any sense, and I was going to have to redo all of them. They made sense. It was amazing the way this AI works, and I'm not nervous about using any of the AI products you guys put out now.
No, thanks for sharing that, Lieutenant. And Chief, I want to throw this question to you. And a lot of the departments we work with, they have AI policies in place, or they're starting to put AI policies in place. What are some of the policy considerations you as a chief would take into when considering adding AI into some of your products that you're using?
Well, where it's going to sit, how it's going to sit on top of them, what it's going to do. Is it an enterprise license? which is always important. Is it just a smaller, or can it be pushed out across an organization? Of course, you boil down to, does it share data outside your agency? That's obviously something we don't want. We want to be encapsulated. We want to keep everything within our agency because, again, a lot of these things we're training on, a lot of the things that AI is helping us with are, safety related and officer safety and how we operate and things like that. We certainly don't want those floating out into the world. Also, we're not using AI to train other AI models in any other way, which I think, again, is very important because that opens up the organization to, losing that information and things like that. And then, is it a secure source for our employees? It only needs to be that. It should be just that, a secure source for the employees. It's only scanning our own data, again, not bringing anything in from the outside, because that's what we want our employees to learn, train on, and be competent with.
Sure. No, thank you. Robin, before I close, any additional questions?
Yeah, we had a few come in, and I wanted to, if I can get back to it, bear with me one second. Lieutenant Jonovich, I think we'll go to you for this one since you're doing assessments and doing policy and standards. One of the questions was, are there analytic reports going to be connected to power standards for the assessment proofs? Can you talk a little bit about how you're using those as proofs if you are?
Yeah, so what I did is it was easier for me to create one deck per policy because then, so we'll say my hunger strike policy, we have to show that we have ongoing training on our specific policy. So then when I go into the analytics, I can pull that and say, this is how often, these are all the questions, all the officers were ongoing trained for a year on the specific hunger strike policy. We have another section that is emergency. You have to have training for all your emergency plans. So then I threw all of my policies that were emergency plans, whether it be riots or escapes, whatever those were, under one deck, and then I can just pull the analytics of that deck and send it to my inspectors.
No, thank you for sharing that. And for those of you who are not using all of our products or not using standards, standards is our accreditation product. And you can learn more about that on our website or with your sales manager. And with that, that's all we have time for today. Thank you, Lieutenant, for spending an hour with us. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Robin, for an amazing job putting this together. And thank you to all who were able to attend today. If your question was not answered, please know that we have a team that can reach out to you to set up an appointment, to connect with you. And you're welcome also to reach out to Power DMS and learn more about our products. And I'll close with, again, thank you for your time today and stay safe out there.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Lieutenant. Thanks, Sandra.